Blog Talk Radio.
21 November 2013. This is BR on the World, the international broadcast from the people that bring you Bostonred, Numbers Man in the Open Source Report, here on Blog Talk and many other networks included. We'll start with the Central African Republic. They're in surrender talks with Joseph Kony, or Coney, I suppose, who is a warlord that has massacred people, who has been indicted by an international criminal court at The Hague. That court has, of course, been criticized by many across Africa, period. But nonetheless, as a 5,000 strong and African Union regional task force supported by 100 U.S. special forces have been hunting Kony and his fighters. Most of them are thought to be hiding in the jungles, straddling the border of Central African Republic, Southern Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And it's very interesting, these U.S. troops being involved here. But they are there, no doubt about that. Abu Musa, who briefed the council, said that Michael Jadani, the interim president of virtually lawless Central African Republic, told them they had contacted Kony, and he is in negotiation. Now, Jadani has become the interim president after the northern Sequoia rebels seized the capital, Bengali, and that's back in March, and they ousted Francisco Bozi. Since then, the landlocked country, it's 9.6 million, has slipped into chaos. And this is Child's Army. They accuse Kony of abducting children. This is from Al Jazeera, which we get this report. Greenpeace activists have been freed in the Russian Federation. So on bail, 8 more people arrested by the Russian Coast Guard during Greenpeace protests against Arctic oil drilling were granted bail on Wednesday in a sign that the Russian authorities may be slowly responding to international rage there. In Paula let's see, what is it? Maxilla, one of the activists whose arrests drew international criticism from the president, Vladimir Putin, smiled as she left the detention center in St. Petersburg. Asked how she felt, the Brazilian simply said happy, and before being driven off by a Greenpeace representative. A total of 20 of the 30 detained on the 18th of September have now been granted bail this week following criticism of Putin over what was widely seen outside of the Russian Federation as harsh treatment. And the Russian Federation is an interesting situation in itself. Much of the internal politics there, some adjustments not. Some they've been fairly criticized in the press, many times unfairly. Meanwhile, one of 30 had his detention extended by 3 months Monday, and all of those aboard Greenpeace ship Arctic Sunset icebreaker during the protests of a Russian oil rig could still face 7-year prison terms on charges of hooliganism. Well, they won't get that. 21 people who appeared in court so far this week. Only Colin Russell, an Australian, had his detention extended. Greenpeace says it is buffered by the decision to keep Russell, 59, in custody 3 more months. Greenpeace said protests were meant to draw attention to the impact of offshore Arctic drilling. Now, the most important thing, in February, they'll have the Winter Olympics in the Russian Federation. And that in itself poses some problems for the authorities in the Russian Federation. We move on here. And as we grab several headlines here, we move to the 50th anniversary. We'll have a special program for the international audience on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of JFK. In the American state of Illinois, the legislature became the state, the 16th to grant legalization to marriage equality there. So that is all over the U.S. That appearing to happen. In Seattle, community education activists were arrested by authorities there. In the old Horace Mann, I used to live in Seattle, so remember that. In what's called the Central Community, there in Seattle, some of the leftover things occurring there. It's called Africa Town. They're all over the nation and the world. The people that were arrested there in obviously overreaction to the protesters. They are being granted, this was a school, an alternative school, a community school, Afrocentric in its views. They sent the SWAT team, this is the Seattle Police Department, and some claimed there were guns, explosives. Well, there were no guns or explosives found there, just 3 people, and that was it, all that they found. So that put a cap on those things. Our primary story, and you'll hear in a minute, is out of the UK. This is more from the collection of Mr. Ed Snowden, that the United Kingdom literally let the CIA store millions of British citizens' email addresses, and from that they did what's called the hops. And the hops, 2 and 3 hops there, the whole address book, and the people in the address book could all be scrutinized. Now, they talk about a 7-decade-old UK-US agreement on intelligence sharing. Britain and the agencies are not supposed to collect data. This is big data involved here on others without permission. So it does raise serious questions. The Guardian reported on this, and so did Channel 4 News. You'll hear from them. One of the conservative or Tory members of Parliament there is interviewed, and they also talk about this in depth. Let's see if we can find a little bit of this. This is from the Guardian. Strike secret deal. These secret deals are coming out. Literally. This is policy S21. S02L1. And the UK Liaison Office. That's the NSAW. Incidentally collects minimum UK data in site analysis. Nonetheless, the phone, internet, and email records of U.S. citizens, I'm reading from the Guardian here, not suspected of any wrongdoing, have been analyzed and stored by the National NSA, National Intelligence Agency in the U.S. It's the first explicit confirmation that UK citizens have been caught up in the massive operation. Now, this is a joint effort by the Guardian and British Channel 4. Said the material is being put in a database where it will be made available to other members of the U.S. intelligence military community. Britain and the U.S. are the main 2 partners in Five Eyes intelligence sharing, which includes Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. The Snowden material revealed the rules were changed to allow NSA analysis and retention of any British citizen's mobile, fax number, email, IP address, swept up in the dragnet. Previously, the data had been stripped out of the NSA's database. These communications were incidentally collected by NSA, meaning the individuals were not the initial target, but nonetheless they have them there. The NSA has been using UK data to conduct so-called patterns of life, contacting chain analysis on which the agency can look up. We talked about 3 hops away from the interest, examining communications of a friend of a friend of a friend. Suggested 3 hops for a typical Facebook user could put the data of more than 5 million people in the dragnet. The 2007 briefing was sent out to all analysts in the NSA Signal Intelligence Directorate. It states the Signal Intelligence Directory and the UK liaison office there together to come up with a new policy that expands the use of incidentally collected on minimized UK data in this so-called signal analysis here. The memo also set out in more detail what the NSA could and could not do. The agency, for example, is still barred from making any UK citizen target of surveillance that would look at the contents of their communication without getting a warrant. However, they now are authorized to en masse take contact identified resulting from incidental collections. May utilize UK contact identifiers in this contact development, may retain, minimize UK identifiers incidentally collected onto this authority with content and metadata. So this is where these people are, and you'll hear a little more about this, and we'll be talking about it also on Bostonred. So this is some of what is happening in your world on the 21st of November 2013. In Afghanistan, they're debating what to do about a U.S. pact there. The elders there are debating it, and how many U.S. troops will stay, how many will go, etc. under this particular situation there. And that debate, I'm assuming, will go on. This is after 2014, so they're looking ahead to see what Hamid Karzai and company will come up with. So this story will be ongoing. Secretary Kerry was there trying to figure out literally which way to go. This is Bostonred for BR on the World, bidding you a happy day from New York. Good day.
Store and analyze the email, mobile phone and internet records of potentially millions of Britons. Documents seen by this program in a joint investigation with The Guardian also reveal an American plan to spy on British citizens unilaterally without the knowledge of the UK government. Our digital editor Paul Mason is in the United States. Paul.
John, I'm in Dallas, where in 2 days' time they'll be commemorating the 50th anniversary of JFK's assassination. This is, of course, the capital of the conspiracy theory. But what we're about to reveal is not theory. It is fact. It's based on documentary evidence, and it is that for the first time we know the USA has been spying on Britons with the UK government's agreement since 2007 at least. And one document suggests it's been doing so with or without the UK government's agreement since 2005. What this means is that the debate on the rights and wrongs of this now has to take place on the basis not of allegation and denial, because the denials can't be right. It has been going on. Basically, we now know that for 6 years, that 1946 agreement between the two countries not to spy on each other's citizens has been effectively shredded.
We've suffered serious destruction, houses and factories, which we've got to rebuild and rebuild quickly.
In 1946,
Peace in Europe was less than a year old. Labour was in power. The Wartime Signals Intelligence Service was renamed as GCHQ. Its headquarters in Cheltenham, now iconic. Its London base, not so well signalled. In 1946, Britain and America signed an agreement to share intelligence on other countries, but not to spy on each other's citizens. I've seen documents showing how that agreement was unpicked, allowing the Americans to spy on potentially millions of innocent Brits. The NSA specifically. Two crucial US documents provided by whistleblower Edward Snowden tell the story. Channel 4 News has seen these documents. The first is marked No Fawn. That is, not for release, even to British intelligence. By 2004, US intelligence had legitimate reasons to worry about British suspects. There were Brits in Guantanamo, shoe bomber Richard Reed was in a US jail, and US spies were clearly concerned that British citizens could pose a threat to the USA. In January 2005, a draft memo from the NSA proposed a new procedure. Even without UK permission, the USA would, quote, target unilaterally, that is, spy, on British citizens and even British communications systems. The memo makes clear the results would remain no fawn, meaning the UK would not be informed. In the weird world of intelligence, you're allowed to write memos where you show different partners different bits of the same memo. So, in the part they showed GCHQ here in London, the Americans said they might target Brits with the full knowledge and cooperation of the British government. In the bit they didn't show them, it said they would do it unilaterally and without telling the British government. We asked the US government if this memo had ever been actioned. They declined to comment.
If that was actually implemented, that means that even our really close alliance and relationship with the US wasn't enough to prevent British citizens being spied on without their government's consent and without any British oversight or knowledge.
But a second document, seen by Channel 4 News, gives a fascinating glimpse into the extent of American spying on British citizens done with UK agreement. The problem arises because of the large amounts of data we all generate as we interact on email, mobile phone, chat services. In 2004, the memo reveals the UK allowed the USA to store and target any UK landline number linked to a suspected person. On the 16th of June 2007, that was expanded, so it could include mobiles, faxes, email, and IP address. Before this, any British contact details gathered accidentally had to be, quotes, minimised, that is, destroyed on the NSA's database. The important thing here is who it affects. By definition, somebody whose mobile number or internet address is collected accidentally is not a terror suspect. But it goes further. The USA is using so-called pattern of life analysis. If I email a terror suspect and then email everybody else in my contacts book to come to a party, well, they can have their data collected as well.
The typical person has, say, 190 Facebook friends. By the time you pull in their friends and their friends too, you're looking at a network of 5 million people. So to track just one person, you've ended up bringing in 5 million.
When the Edward Snowden revelations began, a lot of people's reaction was, why is it a problem if the Americans can see our data? These documents show, until 2007, even the British government thought it was a problem. So, who authorised the change? Jack Straw was Foreign Secretary until May 2006. His successor was Margaret Beckett. She was Foreign Secretary when the second memo was drawn up. Both Jack Straw and Margaret Beckett have declined to comment. The documents leave many questions unanswered, but they do confirm definitively and for the first time that the USA does spy on UK citizens who are not terror suspects. Well, John, there's a lot of questions remaining unanswered here, and that is, first of all, we don't know what happened to that 2005 memo. It was a draft memo. We've tried to find out. We don't know. Likewise, with the agreement with the Americans to let them spy on Brits, you would like to think that somebody involved in overseeing UK intelligence can answer the question, what did we get in return? You would like to think that we did get some security in return. But the wider debate will continue about the rights and wrongs of this kind of surveillance. It is mass, it is strategic, it is not effectively targeted on individual people, but scoops in a whole bunch of data from manifestly innocent people. What is the problem with that? As you've just heard, the British government didn't want that to happen until 2004, 2007. And if you think about it, there are about 500,000 people in this country, America, who are private contractors with access to this top secret information, collected here, but involving British citizens. We know one of them, Edward Snowden, escaped to Russia with rather a lot of that information. So it is manifestly, or has not been, secure. The debate will go on, but it's at least now we've seen these documents and revealed the basic contents, we can have that debate on the basis of fact.
Paul Mason in Dallas. Well, now, we contacted GCHQ, but they declined to comment. The NSA said its operations comply with the laws of the United States and its allies. The Foreign Office refused to comment directly, but stressed the close relationship with America. It also pointed out that GCHQ has warned that people linked to surveillance targets may find themselves monitored. Well, now, the Conservative MP Richard Ottaway is a member of the National Security Strategy Committee. He was also a member of the Intelligence and Security Committee from 2005 to 2010, and he joins us now from Westminster. Richard Ottaway, thank you very much for joining us. I'm wondering whether you, when you were on the committee in 2007, whether you were told that the treaty from 1946 had indeed been effectively torn up in terms of preventing the United States from spying on us, and whether you approved of it.
John, first of all, membership of the Intelligence and Security Committee entails signing the Official Secrets Act, so I'm not at liberty to discuss with you what the committee was told and was not. It would be a criminal offence to do so. But I think actually you just have to go back to the basics on this. Quite clearly, the intelligence community of both the United States and the United Kingdom, indeed a number of other countries around the world, have the capacity to listen to people's phone conversations. And the key question is, as your correspondent has identified, is what was authorised and what was not authorised. And those are the questions that we actually have to ask to the authorities, and I hope we will get the answers to.
Well, do you have any confidence that we will? Because I don't really detect that you ever knew this, and I think that if you had known it, you'd have been so angry you'd have said something about it.
Well, John, as I just said, I'm not in a position to comment what we're informed about. In fact, it would be irresponsible to do so. But you've got to remember...
Are you, now that you do know, are you angry?
What you've got to remember is that the security services are there to protect British citizens and the United States, protecting the citizens of the United States. There are a lot of hypothetical questions around the revelation of these documents. First of all, were they implemented? As you point out, one of the documents is a draft document. And you've had the advantage of looking at them, and no one else has had the advantage of looking at them. I think the way to approach this issue, rather than being angry or outraged, is to have a calm analysis of actually what they say, to pose the questions and to press for answers, rather than a rather speculative report, which I've been hearing.
Well, with respect, I've seen the documents. I'm not speculating what's in them. I've seen it. But what I want to really press you on is, thus far, there has been no admission at any point by the government that the United States spies on British citizens. And this issue has been live now for months. And you're suggesting let's have an inquiry to find out whether it's true. If there were any sort of worth in what the parliamentarians get down to, we should have been told this months ago.
Well, John, I think, frankly, you're being fairly offensive about the role of Parliament here. We have thoroughly good oversight facilities, but we are not into making snap judgments. And we are not into breaking the Official Secrets Act for the benefit of Channel 4 News.
Well, with respect, you know, that we're not the first people to criticise the oversight. Your own colleagues in Parliament, particularly on the Conservative benches, have been enraged by the extent to which the system is not working and is packed with old do-gooders who can be relied upon to behave properly once they get onto the committee.
Well, that's equally offensive comments. Having served on the Intelligence Committee, I know that they actually take their responsibilities very seriously indeed, and they are not packed with do-gooders. They have asked some very difficult questions, in a very rigorous way, in a manner which a select committee sitting in an open session would do.
But the anger,
I think it's wrong of you to assume that they're not. And those people who are criticising the way in which the Oversight Committee worked, simply not having served on the Oversight Committee, are not privy to how those committees are conducting themselves.
But the anger centres ultimately on whether another power, however much of an ally, has the right to go round snooping into people's private emails and the rest of it without any knowledge of or permission from the people we elect to give that permission.
But there I think we can agree. I mean, it is not acceptable for countries to snoop on the citizens of another country without authority. Having said that, as I pointed out at the outset, we know that all these countries have got the capacity to do it, and when they are concerned about security or serious crimes, they actually do conduct surveillance exercises. But it is, in fact, it would be a crime for British agencies to approach the American agencies to say, can you snoop on X, Y, and Z without a warrant, without authority? So, as you pointed out earlier on, if those who are in charge at the time have to be asked what it is they agreed to, and that is the system of oversight that we have, and there may be perfectly good oversight going on, it's just it hasn't been made public.
Right. Mr. Ottaway, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Very grateful.